Spain's winning goal came in the 106th minute of the 2026 World Cup final. 3 players were involved in the final move, and the player who scored had not scored once in the tournament until his team needed him most. Argentina had Lionel Messi, arguably one of the greatest of all time, but they didn't have a single shot on target. There's a particular kind of loneliness in being the person everybody expects to save the day. A lot of leaders know that feeling. A lot of founders know it. So do general counsels, law firm partners, nonprofit executives, and the person on the team who's become so reliable that everybody else has stopped building the muscles to help out when they need them. We call this person the superstar. And sometimes what we really have is a single point of failure. So welcome to Leadership, Law, and Lightwork. I'm Marcia Narayan Weldon. This is the show where we study how the brain, the body, and belief patterns shape the way you lead, decide, and show up. Each week you get the Leadership Lab, the brief, the legal blind spot, and the Toolkit take. So maybe you don't care about soccer. I still want you to listen to the episode because the World Cup is where we're starting, but what we're really talking about is what happens when a team becomes bigger than its most gifted person. We're also talking about the mistakes leaders make when we fill a team with people who feel familiar, that communicate the way we do, and they make us feel comfortable. Stay with me to the end because I'm going to give you a practical team exercise. You can use it with any team, your law firm, legal department, leadership team, nonprofit board, your growing business, maybe even your family. I call it the team sheet, and it's going to help you see where you have real depth, where you have too much sameness, and where the one person is carrying a job that should belong to the whole team. So let's get into it. So recently, Spain beat Argentina 1-0 after extra time to win the 2026 World Cup. Messi from Argentina was 39. He'd already won the World Cup in 2022, so there's no need to debate the legacy. But still, a lot of people expected this to be his last World Cup, and he was trying to win 2 in a row. He'd played an extraordinary tournament. He finished with 8 goals, 4 assists. In the semifinal, he assisted both of Argentina's goals. Then came the final. Spain didn't simply hope that Messi would have a bad day. It limited his opportunities and kept Argentina from finding another way through. Even a superstar cannot manufacture an entire team by himself, and that's the point. We could say Messi had a bad final and leave it there, but that would miss the larger lesson. Argentina had no reliable second way to win when Spain limited him. So Spain, and this is a metaphor, but it's true, combined young talent with experienced leadership. Different generations knew their roles. The team had depth in its attack, midfield, defense, and goal. And the winning goal tells the whole story. A defender sent the ball into the area. One substitute directed it back. Another substitute scored in the 106th minute. The scorer had been criticized during the tournament and had not scored until the final. He became Spain's 7th different scorer of the competition. So I want you to think about that. The player who decided that the biggest game, he was the one who got it, and he'd been waiting on the bench. The team didn't need him to be the star for 8 straight matches. It needed him to be ready, to stay ready and be ready, and to understand his role and enter a system that knew how to use him. And this is what a lot of organizations get wrong about talent. We spend so much time asking who's the best person. The harder and more important question is whether the team can keep functioning when that person is tired, unavailable, heavily defended, or just simply a human being. In a law firm, this could be the rainmaker whose relationships hold up an entire practice group. In a legal department, it might be the lawyer who knows every contract, every regulator, every difficult executive. In your business, it could be the founder who still approves every decision because everyone trusts her judgment more than the process. People praise her because she's indispensable, but her calendar's telling a different story. If you're watching this episode on video, by the way, you may have noticed the octopus necklace I'm wearing, and I'm wearing it for this episode. One of my team members nicknamed me the Wise Octopus because my tentacles are in so many different places. I even got the bracelet. I practice law. I work with founders, accelerators, business groups, law firms, legal departments. I build programs. I train a large language model. I'm an executive coach. I have ideas when other people like me just want to go to sleep. And I love the nickname because it was affectionate and accurate, and it makes me smile. But it also exposed a real risk. An octopus can have 8 arms and still just have 1 body. I love the necklace, but I don't love it as my operating model. So I had to build a team because I could not do all this by myself. And in risk management, we call this the key person risk. There's too much critical knowledge or responsibility sitting with one person. And if that person becomes unavailable or just runs out of capacity, the work slows down or stops. So building my team has required me to accept that other people do not have to work like me to care as much as I do. I need people who see what I miss, build the road underneath an idea that's moving in 5 directions, and tell me when something's brilliant, premature, confusing, or all three. And that's the emotional part of teamwork that we often skip. Trusting a team means letting other people affect the outcome. You got to give up some of that control so the work can become larger than your own capacity. There's also the power of support. So I attended the World Cup in Brazil in 2014. And one of the things that stayed with me the whole time was the energy from the stands. You could feel thousands of people willing the players to keep going. The fans didn't take a shot, they didn't make a save, but their presence changed the atmosphere around the people who did. And we tend to define a team as the people with the official roles or titles. But the real team is often larger. It includes the person who gives you the difficult feedback before you walk in the room. That mentor, that sponsor who says your name when you're not in the room. The operations person who keeps everything from falling apart. Your family, your colleagues, the people who remind you of what you're capable of when that game goes into extra time. And support is work. It may not appear on the scoreboard, but it can change who keeps going. But I want to make this a little bit more uncomfortable. A lot of leaders say they want the best team. Then they recruit people who went to the same schools, learn the same professional language, have similar networks, and make decisions in the same way. And we call it fit. Often what we mean is that the person feels easy to us. Familiarity can feel easy, but it can leave your team exposed. If everybody on the team sees the same risk, who's looking at the one that you missed? If every lawyer was trained in the same system, who understands how the client in another country is hearing your advice? If everybody's a visionary, then who finishes? Who does the actual work? If everybody protects harmony, who tells the truth early? And if everybody challenges, who keeps the group committed after the debate is over? Difference has to contribute to the work. Build a team with enough range to solve the problem in front of it. And different nationalities can bring different languages, different relationships to authority, different approaches to time, different ways of expressing disagreement, and different expectations about respect. Those differences can give a team more information, but they could also create more friction. Someone might believe that disagreement proves engagement. Someone else might think that contradicting a leader in public is deeply disrespectful. One person might give feedback directly because that feels honest. Another one might communicate more through context because bluntness feels unnecessarily humiliating. And a team can misread quiet as disengagement, questions as defiance, and confidence as arrogance, and an accent as a lack of competence. So explaining everything about a person through culture creates a whole other stereotype. Cultural intelligence begins with curiosity and leaves room for every Brazilian, Spaniard, Nigerian, Jamaican, or American to feel individual. The leader's job is to build enough shared language that people can remain different without having to keep guessing what everybody else means. And that's your leadership lab. A superstar can elevate a team, but a healthy team gives the superstar somewhere else to pass the ball. So we're going to go now to the brief, and I want to talk about when initiative outruns coordination. I actually found a World Cup study, yes, there's a theme, but it's not just about soccer, that fits this conversation almost perfectly, and I'm going to link it in the show notes. The researchers studied teams from the 2014 and 2018 World Cups. They looked at 190 team performances across 64 national teams, and they used heat maps to track when players moved beyond their usual positions and passing patterns to see how the teams coordinated. So here's what surprised me. Taking initiative did not automatically improve performance. The benefit appeared when the team coordinated that initiative. And after a certain point, more individual movement was connected with weaker coordination. Think about that if you're the person that always goes above and beyond. You answer every question, you cover everybody else's work, you stay up until 2 a.m. fixing things. Sometimes you're helping. Sometimes 5 people have left their positions and no one's protecting the goal, though. Good intentions can create duplication, confusion, and drop responsibilities. A team needs people who are going to step up, but it also needs clear roles and clear enough communication for everyone to know where that help belongs. So this was sports research, and I'm not turning it into a universal rule for every workplace. But the question travels well. Can your team absorb and coordinate all that initiative? Another study published in 2025 paired business and engineering students and used brain imaging while they worked. The mixed expertise teams produced more unusual ideas. Those ideas were also less practical. Overall, those teams were no more creative than the teams whose members had similar expertise. So it was a small experiment with 40 pairs, but I love the question that it raises. What kind of thinking does this stage of your work require? You may need people who stretch the possibilities. You may need people who can test, narrow, and implement them. Often you need both, with a shared understanding of where the team is generating and when it is deciding. Another paper from 2025 proposed the idea of collective cultural intelligence. In plain English, a multicultural team can learn how to notice cultural assumptions, learn from experience, and adjust together. Bringing people from different cultures onto the team creates an opportunity. The team still has to learn how to use what those people see, though. So ask, can their differences reach the decision? Who speaks first? Who gets interrupted? Who's expected to translate? Does the person closest to the customer have enough authority to challenge the person with the biggest title? When somebody disagrees, does the team investigate the information or judge the personality? A strong team learns when to lead, support, challenge, and pass. And that's your brief. Now let's turn to the legal blind spot. And the legal blind spot is sponsored by Legally Lucid, which helps business owners and nonprofit leaders spot the questions that they may not know to ask before they become expensive problems. So I want to talk to you about how cultural misunderstandings can actually turn into a legal problem. Imagine a manager who describes one employee as too aggressive because she speaks directly in the meetings. Another is not leadership material because he pauses before answering and he rarely interrupts. A third loses client-facing work because someone is uncomfortable with her accent. Now, those labels might sound neutral, but slow down and ask, what actually happened here? Did the employee interrupt 3 clients, or did she communicate more directly than the manager prefers? Did he miss a decision, or does he take a moment to think before he speaks? Can clients understand her, or does her accent simply sound unfamiliar? In the U.S. and in many jurisdictions around the world, employment law can prohibit decisions tied to a person's national, ethnic, or racial background. And if your team works across borders, begin with the law where the employee works. Then find out whether another country's law is also connected to the employment relationship. So, for example, under U.S. law, national origin protection can reach ethnicity, accent, physical, linguistic, or cultural traits associated with the group. It can also cover perceived national origin and association with someone from a particular group. Other jurisdictions may categorize or analyze these differently, and this is not legal advice. But 2 co-workers can misread each other without breaking the law. The risk changes when a cultural assumption affects hiring, pay, assignments, promotion, discipline, termination, or access to the valuable work that gets people promoted. Harassment can also become unlawful when it is so severe or pervasive that it creates a hostile working environment. And the same facts can support claims involving race, color, religion. So let's stay with accents for a moment because this problem crosses borders, even though the legal test will vary. In the U.S., the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission says an employer may consider an accent only when it materially interferes with the person's ability to perform the job. You need evidence connected to the actual work. An unfamiliar accent is not proof that someone cannot communicate. And trust me, I defended a client who spent $300,000 to find that in a lawsuit. Here's the research that should make us stop and think, though. In a 2025 review, which I'm going to link in the show notes, it examined 41 findings involving almost 7,500 evaluators. People had a bias that was connected more strongly to assumptions about competence when there was an accent than whether the person could be understood or whether the job required speaking skills. Every leader should pause. You might think you're evaluating communication when you're really reacting to familiarity. So what do you do with this? Before you interview anyone, decide what communication skills the job actually requires and how you're going to measure them objectively. Ask every candidate the same core questions and use the same criteria. And if someone raises a concern about an accent, ask for an example. What could the listener not understand? What portion of the job could the person not perform? When you hear things like polish, presence, and fit, sometimes it's hiding an assumption that no one's really examining. Look at your performance reviews. She interrupted 3 clients, describes what happened. She's an abrasive person, gives you somebody's interpretation. He submitted 2 reports 2 days late, gives you a fact. He lacks urgency, maybe an assumption that maybe nobody made the deadline clear. Step back and look for patterns. Who gets the client contact, the stretch assignments, the promotion, the second chances? Give employees a safe way to raise concerns and protect them from retaliation. And please do not appoint one international employee as the unpaid professor of everybody else's culture. The whole team can learn and should. Remember, this segment provided you with general legal education. The law is going to vary by country, state, province, and the facts involved. Find a lawyer who practices law where you work if you think that this is an issue that you need legal help with. And that was your legal blind spot. A misunderstanding becomes more dangerous when a stereotype starts deciding who gets the opportunities. Finally, let's go to the toolkit take. And let's talk about teams. We're going to build your team sheet. This is inspired by the team sheets that coaches use when they see who's starting, who's going to be on the bench, how the players fit together. You can do this alone before a planning meeting, or you can do it with your team. Give yourself 10 minutes and one blank page. At the top, write the result that the team is trying to produce. Be specific. Grow the business is too vague. Launch the new service by October without compromising client work gives the team something it can organize around. Reduce contract review time while maintaining the right risk controls gives a legal department a real target. Now, I want you to write the names of the people whose work is necessary for that result. Include the people with the formal titles, but don't stop there. Who connects the group? Who challenges weak thinking? Who catches the details? Who understands the customer? Who gives the team emotional or practical support when the energy drops? Add those people too, even if they don't have titles. And if your name appears besides every single job, congratulations and condolences. You have found the problem. Under each name, answer 3 questions. What does this person see that the rest of us may miss? What does this person need from the team to do their best work? What happens if this person's unavailable? And that 3rd question is usually where the truth appears. If the answer is everything stops, circle that person's name. You have found a single point of failure. Protect that person's value by ending the team's dependence on their exhaustion. Now look at the page for sameness. Where do people have overlapping strengths? Where is there an empty space? Maybe everyone can generate ideas and nobody owns implementation. Maybe everyone understands the law and nobody understands the customer. Maybe everybody's diplomatic and no one will say that the plan is failing. Maybe every senior person shares the same nationality, professional training, college, business school, or network, and the people have different information, have the least power to speak. Then ask this: what do we keep misreading about one another? Perhaps directness is being read as hostility. Reflection is being read as weakness. Asking questions is being thought of as resistance. Maybe somebody's nodding because they are listening respectfully, and the leader says, oh, they agree. Don't answer for your teammates, ask them. You can say, when you disagree, how should we know that? What kind of feedback helps you use it? What part of your experience are we underusing? When the team gets tense, what do we tend to misunderstand about you? And write those answers on your team sheet. Treat it as a working agreement based on real people and real work. And then choose one thing for the next 30 days. Maybe it's cross-training a second person. Maybe it's rotating who speaks first. Maybe you send questions before a meeting so that people who process differently can prepare. Maybe it's giving the person closest to the issue the authority to lead that part of the discussion, even if they're not the boss. Maybe invite the dissenter to explain to the rest of the room what's missing. Your team does not need everybody to be the same kind of player. It needs enough trust and structure for different players to contribute to the same result. Spain won because the team had more than one way to create a moment, and the person who had not scored was still ready in the 106th minute. So here's my question for you this week. Where's your team confuse sameness with trust? And who has a contribution that your current system does not know how to use? If your entire plan depends on one exhausted person being exceptional every day, that's a structure that is a huge red flag. Build those passing lanes, strengthen your bench, learn how your people communicate. Let the person with the right view take the shot at the goal. And if this episode was useful to you, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with someone who's carrying too much of the team alone. I'll see you next time.